So we have a Wednesday night race here. It's race number 6 of the 2012 year. June 20th, summer solstice, longer day of the year. And we're in our sequence here right now. Tacking around on the starboard, we're going to try and go a nice, simple approach for the start. Wind's a little bit over to the left, but there's good breeze down the middle of the course right now. We just want to keep it very simple. Start with no boats around us, clean air, sail, and life should be pretty good. So, got Heart of Gold down below us, but we're able to accelerate up and go over the top of them. And really the only thing we're going to have to deal with are these two boats that are coming down on port, but as long as we stay down below them and keep them from shooting us up over the line, will be good. We've got 1 minute. We're about 15 seconds, maybe 10 seconds early, so we shoot up also to gain a little bit of height on the line because the wind is so far left it's a little hard to fetch the line right now. We head back down, and Bantry's coming in down below us, and I want to head way, way, way down below them. So we're looking for a big down, but we go up. So now they've got us hooked, and we shoot up to stay clear. It's a windward boat. We have to stay clear of them. Finally, once they turn down, we do a big turn down to get going. Of course, we've slowed down quite a bit now. So you're going to see Heart of Gold coming in down to the left of us. And now, once again, we are the windward boat. Need to stay clear, so this shoots us a little further up the line. So we head on up, head on up. Now we're trying to slow down, let these guys get by. There's a nice little spot behind them, so now we do a big turn down to get back down. And we're going pretty slow right now, and we're pretty far over. So we're headed down. We should actually do a nice little ease on the jib. There you go, Mike. Nicely done. So we're going to head on down and jibe. That'll clear the line. And actually, the wind's kind of worked its way all over the right side of the course now. And there's a nice little lift on port. So this works out as well as you could hope it to work out. So we jibe on over, start working our way on up to close haul. You can see most of the fleet started on starboard down at the boat or headed on over to the left. And we're headed on to the right. There's really nice pressure down the middle of the course. And then right up ahead of us, you can see a big barge that's anchored right there. So that's going to be a little obstruction we have to deal with. I think the two boats that are down below us are Migration and Agora. They're going in the same direction as us, and the rest of the fleet and the A-boats are all going over to the left. So we're cranking on along. We're coming up to the barge now. As you can hear, the breeze has come down a little bit, so we're getting ready to do attack. And luckily we started to get a little bit of a header, so this should help us with a little bit of the lift, and we should be able to pick off a couple more boats on the next portion of this leg. So here we come with our tack, and we're tacking on over. You can see a few of the A-boats up ahead of us, and the city behind. And off we head again into a nice line of pressure that's going up here. This is actually a fun night for us. This is one of our wacky Wednesdays where we move everybody around on the boat, and they do different things. So, getting ready for another nice little tack here. Again, we've worked ourselves into phase pretty well. So we get into a little header, we dig into it a few boat lengths, tack on over, it puts us into a nice lift. So we're pretty well in phase at this point. And have been sailing with some pretty decent speed. Anyway, as a wacky Wednesday, we do have everybody moving around. So tonight we have Kim, who's normally our squirrel, doing the main. Mike, who is our Wednesday everything sort of guy, he's on jib tonight. KK, who's on the bow, is in pit. And Mike and KK actually had some rockin' tacks tonight. They were just going back and forth very, very well. Hopefully they'll prove me right on this one. Go through, we dig in right towards the East Boston Pier. And tack right on over into, again, a nice little pressure line that's coming down. Oh yeah, look at that. So let's see, who else do we move around? We have Teresa, who is normally on mast. She's trimming spinnaker tonight. And then Jim, who's normally on spinnaker, is doing mast. We took Kevin off a jib and put him up on the pointy end of the bow. He's been jumping around all night having fun. And I'm the squirrel tonight. I'm responsible for getting the kite down and taking pictures and hiking hard. So here we are on starboard. Again, heading back up towards Boston. We're going to look for a nice pressure line. What we're seeing is pretty much in the middle of the course, both in the harbor and then the portion going to Charlestown, is where the breeze seems to be funneling down tonight. So we're just trying to stay in that pressure line at this point. And we're going to tack over now. And this starts to head us up the last third of the course, headed up towards our drop mark, which is up off of Pier 6 in Charlestown. And you can see there are a couple A boats ahead of us at this point, but we've got all the B boats pretty well behind us. Oddly enough, that being over early, which got us onto port right at the beginning, ended up putting us perfectly in phase, and we just stayed with it. Every time that lift turned into a header, tacked on over. So after 4 or 5 of those, we were able to pass all the folks who had started ahead of us, which was pretty sweet. So we stayed over towards the Boston side, really to stay in that pressure and to stay high so we can come in and do a tack set. And see, Shout was the first A boat around. They just went by us. Scheherazad's not too far behind them. And right up at the mark right now, the Cone is getting ready to do their set. So we're coming up high so that we can do a tack set here. Just come in and spin right around the mark. Now what we'll have to contend with is that there are 3 of the C-class boats, the guys that started 6 minutes before us, that are all going to be tacking over and coming in on starboard tack. We're going to be coming in on port tack here. So we need to make sure that if we come in there, we don't force any of those guys above close hauled, because, well, that would break the rules, and that's not good. So right now we're really looking at it, watching these guys tack over. You can see Avicera's tacking right now, and we're looking, making sure that we're making trees on them and have a good shot coming in. So right now it's still looking pretty good. The nice thing is they all overstood the mark, so they're cracked off a bit. So even if they do head up a scooch, we're fine. So here we come up to the mark. And let's see. Here we go. We spin around just inside, and we go for the hoist. Now, we had a couple of interesting hoists this evening. So as you can see right now, the halyard's actually hooked on the windward spreader. So we can't hoist a kite. We've got to ease it on down, clear that from the spreader. So in the meantime, we just try and keep the boat moving relatively fast. So we got the kite down. Our bowman clears it from there. And back we go. Hoist, 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 hoist. And up we go with the kite. And we're going to trim on in and get that filled. We're sailing a little hot right now because we've been sailing with the jib. We wanted to keep the boat moving so we can make our own apparent. As soon as that kite fills, we start rolling up the jenny. And we start turning down. Once we get the jenny all rolled up, it's going to be an ease on the backstay, and then we'll fracculate the rig to move it forward. And now we've got some speed going, and we are headed back down the course at this point. So pretty good recovery on that. We didn't lose too much time on that hoist. And there you are. So we got Teresa doing a little trim tonight on the spin, and Jim on the mast giving a little coaching because Jim just loves his spinnaker so much. Once we get out of the area up by Charlestown, the breeze starts to pick up as we get in the main harbor. So we caught a pretty nice puff here, and the breeze keeps heading further and further left all the way that we go down. We can see way over to the right, it's very dead. We can see way over to the left, well, you end up back over by that barge, so that's not good. So we're trying to stay in the middle of this pressure, and it's been cooperating with us up to this point. Really being able to push us on down the race course. We really don't have anybody behind us that we need to contend with. We're going to start seeing some of the A boats will end up coming back up the course. The course tonight is N1, so we're starting down by the green 13 mark. That area, we head up north to Charlestown and then back down to the pin, and we're going around twice. So at this point we're coming down, and you can see Sparkle Pony over to our right, and also it's pretty dead over to our right. So our thought here is let's not get tied up with them. Let's stay in that pressure. let's do a nice little jibe, get away from those guys. It's always bad to have the boat magnet. And then we can jibe right back, and then be able to come right down on the starboard ley line and do a nice Mexican. So here comes our jibe. Head on over. And around we go. Oh, not too bad. Come out of it. Head a little hot to gain a little speed. And then as soon as we have that pressure, start working down. That's one of the A boats. Looks like Shout coming upwind right now. So we're back in that pressure line. Now we're moving out pretty smartly. Hence the weight coming off the boat. And we start working our way down towards that mark in order to get our best VMG going on here, which is always nice. And we won't have too far to go until we're going to hit that starboard ley line. See another boat coming up. I think that's Cone over to the left. They're headed back on upwind. And who else is down there? I think there's another A boat. I'm not sure who that is. Well, actually, there's a couple of B boats. That's Enya and Rocket, I believe, going around. So we're coming right up onto the starboard ley line. I'm going to jibe around. And much nicer pressure there. A little fast on the turn on that one, but pretty good recovery. We get it going, and we're not too far away from the mark at this point. Probably about 4 or 5 boat lengths. So here I go, down into the pit. Pull that spinnaker on down. You can see the mark just over to the left-hand side. It'll be that white drop mark right below the boom right now. And we're going to do a nice Mexican around that. So we get everything back, out haul back on, backstay back to our upwind position. Get ready with the jib in order to do a Mexican. And once we get up a beam of it, we're going to turn down. Out goes the jib on the new side. Here comes the jibe. A little trim in on that kite. And then once it hits the genoa, just blow the halyard. It slides right on down. So here we go. Probably a little fatter on the jib there would be good. The speed. Here we go. Kites down. And now there's the mark going right by the beam of the boat. And we're headed on up to close haul. So nice takedown there, everybody. And we are pointed back up the track again. And the sun is coming on down. Nice praise for the crew by Captain Steve. Positive reinforcement and beer, that always works pretty nicely. And, okay, so here we go. Again, you can hear the pressures come up a little bit as we get closer over to that barge. That's really where that breeze line seems to be working down the course. That's good to know. We've got a nice little header that kind of twists the wind as it goes around that. So every time you get close to it, you get a nice little header and you tack over a nice little lift, so you can run that for a little bit. Here comes another tack. Again, just wait till the jib barely breaks. Nice job, KK, pulling that right around. Excellent. And we're right back on the close hauled. And we get some serious rail candy hiking on out there. Keeping the boat nice and flat tonight. We see some other boats coming downwind at this point. This is some of the C fleet and the back of the B fleet coming through. So at this point we went up quite a ways on this, and we had a really nice lift for a while, and then finally it backed right when we needed a tack, so that was pretty helpful. So we figured, well, let's tack. There you go. So over we go, and headed back up onto Charlestown. There's another A boat down. Well, actually, that might be Enya down below us. You can just see going out of the right-hand side of the frame right now. So one of the C boats. So as we look up here, though, we can see a couple things. First of all, we can definitely see the breeze is way down in Charlestown, which typically happens. Still a little bit more pressure over towards the Boston side, but boy, does it get quiet. So we had an awfully long beep on port there. And now as the breeze fades, it also really clocks. So we get a big righty. So we just push it all the way up towards the beach here on the East Boston side. And then as we get into to the shallows there, we'll end up tacking on over, because if we don't, we hit land, and that's just never really fast. We're also waiting. We see a nice little puff that's coming down over to our left, so we're really trying to tack so we can hit right into that puff and let it kind of lift us up. I think when we go through, you'll see we anticipate it just being kind of a 90-degree tack, but we get that righty in that puff, that little velocity lift. I think I'm pointing up to Steve saying, hey, it's lift, let's head on up. So we're doing that. Sun's going down. Even though it's the longest day of the year, at some point it has to come down, I suppose. So we head on up here, trying to stay in that pressure. We can really see that up by the Constitution Marina, it's very dead there, and seems to be very dead over on the right side too. So we're just trying to stay in the pressure. Seems to be very helpful with sailboats, pressure. So we went up to that same ley line where we came in before to do the tack set, but because the pressure's down and because the breeze has clicked a little bit to the right, there's no way that we're going to get in and be able to do a tack set again. So at this point, we're just going to go on up over to the starboard ley line and do a standard barroway set, which is pretty rare on Wednesday nights. It almost always seems to be tack sets that we're coming in on the port ley line. So we tacked over here. Those couple of sailboats up there are a couple little Solwings or club boats that are out racing around. We got the green mark right off our bow. So time for the pre-feed. Little roll reversal. Normally KK's on the bow and Kevin's back in the pit helping with the pre-feed. So it's nice to move them around and everybody gets to appreciate everybody else's jobs. So those two little boats aren't going to be an issue, the little club guys there. So we're coming on up and we are ready to do our standard barroway hoist. So there goes the kite. Just before it hits the top, we normally try to trim in on that kite, get it going, get it flying, and then almost immediately we're going to have to start heading down. We're going to start generating a lot of good apparent breeze. Again, ease off on the backstay, roll up the jenny, fracculate the rig to help project that kite forward. And now we're going along. Now what we are seeing at this point is that it is really dead over by the Boston side, and there's a nice little line of pressure closer over to the East Boston side. So we're not going to go too far up here before we decide to jibe and get over in that pressure. It's also going to keep us away from the taller buildings. It looks like the breeze is kind of hitting up over the buildings and then jumping down and hitting the water on the far side. So once we have our boat speed and everything settled down, we'll go for that. Jim looks very comfortable up there on the mast. Leaning back, chilling out. Okay, here comes our jibe. So once we're ready to go, KK in the pit takes over the sheet. She's keeping her eyes forward. As we start to do the turn, she can watch that kite, ease it out. As soon as it gets to the clue, she's off it, takes it right off the can. Bow can then grab it, pull it around, and the spin trimmer's trimming in on that lazy sheet. Little early on the turn, and then somehow we managed to hit the clutch on the halyard. So luckily somebody saw that and jumped up on the mast and hauled it back up. And then we headed back up, trimmed it back in, and got the boat moving a little bit. That did slow us down quite a bit, but it was pretty good recovery. And again, because it was such a light breeze, the kite just kind of fell on the deck and didn't get in the water, which is nice. So now we're trying to get that speed, trying to stay in that little bit of pressure that's over on the East Boston side. So we've got that nice little pufflet, and here we go. Again, nice ease out. Once it gets the clue, or the forestay, we run the clue right back. Good to go. We got some boats coming up here. I think that's the Henderson or a Rocket. No, that's Rocket going by. They're one of the sea boats. And I think it's Eagle behind them that's coming in. They're one of the B boats with us. And so now we're kind of in that nice little line of pressure. We've got some traffic we're going to have to dodge. We have the Odyssey coming down from Charlestown. We have the Flying Cloud coming up. We're actually going to end up going through their wake and just bouncing around for a bit, so that wasn't too much fun. But once we finally get through that, we get a little further up out of that Charlestown area, we start getting better pressure, and we start getting that big, huge lefty again. You can see here that as we sail down here, we just keep getting headed right down to the mark, which is always good. The Odyssey's up there ahead of us, so they're not going to be an issue as far as blanking us. A lot of time we're trying to figure out how to dodge the ferries, stay on the windward side so they're not blanking us and all that stuff. Heart of Gold's made out pretty well, though, by staying up, by not doing a jibe and staying up on the high side of the city. So they're the white kite that you're now going to be able to see in the frame here. So we're zipping on along, headed down towards the finish line at this point. And we've stayed nice and hot here, so we're not going to be able to get all the way down to the line. So we're just going to go over, get to the port ley line, jibe, and come right in. Here comes the cone upwind. They just finished, so they're headed back to the dock. Lovely Lewis Wharf. So we're right on the ley line and less than a minute away from the finish line. So it's time to jibe. We got nice speed on it. Always like to head up and get it a little hot right before the jibes. It helps us go on through. So we're carrying it right up to this port ley line. There's also a little boat with some wake that went in front of us. So KK's looking at that kite, trimming it as we go. And we're going to get through the wake, jibe over. When you do, you can see Heart of Gold, who's right ahead of us. They're almost at the finish line right now. Here comes our jibe on over. And over to our left with the blue kite, you can see Il Cattivo. We are on port. They are on starboard, so we'll just have to make sure we stay clear of them. But we have pretty good speed. We're just going to soak down towards the line. And up here at some point, we should see a pin in a race committee boat. And the line is barely fetchable, but barely is all we need, so we won't have to do a second jibe. We'll just get up to the pin, and once we get there, just click it down a bit, and we'll be good to go. Where is that lovely pin? Ah, there it is, right under the boom and the kite. So that's our finish line. Coming on up. Steve's got a visual on it. We get up, and as soon as it's a beam, we start working our way down. And hey, there's a whistle.